Time now for a closer look at some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have former Democratic congressional candidate Darlene McDonald and Salt Lake Tribune columnist Michelle Quist. Really glad to have both of you with us. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
Let's get right into the race for the White House. A big announcement coming during the week. Former UN ambassador and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley jumping in the race for the Republican nomination. Michelle, let's start with you. How do you assess her as a candidate?
I think she'll be a great candidate. I loved this announcement. Always good to have more diversity. Always love seeing a woman in the mix. Love seeing anyone other than Donald Trump announce. I loved seeing this announcement. It was good news.
All right, we'll talk a little bit more about the dynamic between her and the former president in just a minute. But Darlene, let's get your thoughts on the Democratic side looking over at the Republican race. How are you looking at this?
It'll definitely be interesting to see how the Republicans assess their candidates for 2024. I think Nikki Haley will be a very interesting as well as a competitive candidate for the Republicans. It's all up to the primary voters on the Republican side, but it'll be interesting, and I'm excited to see what they do.
Michelle, we have two official candidates, one being the former President Trump, and now Nikki Haley, others rumored to get in as well. But just this dynamic here, her former boss, how do you potentially see that playing out?
You know, I'm not sure that the two will make it to the end. I'm not sure Donald Trump will be there for the full race. I doubt that he will. I don't think that that the Republican base wants to see him in the race again. This is, you know, we've done that. He's got a lot of baggage, and I think Nikki Haley knows that. I think she sees an opportunity, and you know, I think this isn't the first time that somebody has run against their, you know, boss. Politics is a long game, and I think she sees that opportunity.
Okay, definitely a long game, no doubt about that. Darlene, as you assess this from the Democratic side, we haven't had anything official. There's a lot of talk that President Biden will run again. And you start to look at the field that is forming on the other side. How should Democrats approach this as a strategy?
You have to take every candidate seriously. If Nikki Haley does end up being the nominee on the Republican side, we cannot take anything for granted. Democrats cannot take anything for granted. I actually think that Joe Biden is doing an absolutely wonderful job. He has proven to be very good for Utah with the announcement that happened on yesterday with Texas Instrument in the Chips and Science Act. So I think that Joe Biden will be our nominee, and I will support that 100%. But we cannot take anything for granted. We have to work really, really hard.
Michelle, I hear in a lot of Republican circles that they would love to face President Biden in 2024. Your thoughts on a potential Republican matchup with the current president? Oh,
I think that they always, you know, there's always kind of talk that the current president, that there's lots of room to face, you know, that something's always going wrong. I think that Republicans want to face current president because there's lots to gripe about.
Darlene, talk more about that, why you say you like him as another nomination and another term for president.
Joe Biden is President Biden, excuse me. He's solid. He's solid. Yes, I know people want fresh, new faces. I want fresh, new faces. But Joe Biden, President Biden, is someone that we trust, someone that I trust. He is someone that has a proven record in Washington, D.C. He also has a proven record as president, as vice president, as senator, and I happen to believe, and the evidence is there, that his administration is doing a very good job. The numbers prove that he's doing a very good job.
Michelle, your thoughts. Do you see President Biden as being the strongest candidate on the Democratic side?
I think it would be a difficult ask to go for somebody else at this point. I think it would be hard to go for vice president, an unknown. I think it would be hard to go for anybody that's not the incumbent. Incumbent always has kind of the leg up.
Mm-hmm. And I think most of us expect that to likely happen. Let's move into another interesting topic that we're not seeing only play out here at the state level, but at the national level as well. We see lawmakers in the U.S. Capitol and state capitol starting to look at social media and the impact it's having on kids, and whether or not it is time to, step in and protect kids on that level. First off, Darlene, do you see a need to do anything as far as protecting kids on social media?
This is a difficult one. The need, yes. Is it possible in the way that they are trying to do it? I don't think so. It would be very difficult to enforce. Also, you have to look at how much power that you're going to give a government entity, whether that's on a local level or a federal level. In order to have something like this implemented and even to be able to work, everyone have to participate. That means you and me would have to also confirm our date of birth, our data, and someone is going to collect that data. That I work in information technology, and I know what can happen to that data, and where is that data going to be stored, who is going to make sure that that data is protected, how is it going to be deleted, all of those things. You're talking about PI data, which is personal information data, that's going to be stored on a server somewhere, and it's going to be able to be hacked. So I don't think we're going to be able to enforce this.
Michelle, your thoughts on that? Is there a need for government to intervene here when it comes to kids and social media?
I tend to agree that there certainly is a need, and it's also a very popular concern, especially among parents, that there is a concern, especially among minors, that they have access to this technology. But the concern for personal identifying information, and especially connecting parents to children, when you're asking children to get permission from their parents to access these accounts, you're then identifying which children are with which parents. Mm-hmm. It seems likely that there should be some kind of program that can stop children from accessing, minors from accessing pornography and programs. But it's certainly not the ability or the prerogative of the federal government. Perhaps there's some, responsibility of the state government to do this, but it's got to be studied. I don't know how the state government is going to do this, especially from the limited government prerogative of a conservative state like Utah.
Yeah, and we will see how this plays out. We've seen at the state level anyway an all-out ban not move forward, and then with the consent of the parent gaining a little more traction. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, HJR 2, a big one that passed during the week, now in effect, changing the way judges can rule on injunctions here in the state of Utah. Darlene, your thoughts on that joint resolution?
Well, I'm not an attorney, that first and foremost, so let me just say that. So I'm going to probably defer this question mostly to our guest here, Ms. Quist, because she can speak to this from an attorney perspective, but from what I know of this, and as she was saying about the whole concept of limited government, we have three branches of government. We have the executive branch, we have judicial, we have legislative branch. When the legislative branch don't like what the judicial has done, then they tend to pass laws to take away the power from the judicial branch, and to be able to pass laws that no one can repeal or no one else can question. That gives too much power to the legislative branch and potentially to the executive branch as well. I'm not in favor of this. I actually believe, as some conservatives would say, in limited government. This is one of those areas where the government is getting too big.
Okay, Michelle, we have about a minute. You are an attorney, as has been established. Supporters of this argue it was too easy. There needed to be more of a substantial showing of evidence that plaintiffs will be able to win. Do you agree with that?
Well, so the problem with HJR 2 was that there was no problem to be fixed here other than one bill. They affected the whole entire injunction statute because they weren't winning their case on the abortion. They completely rewrote the injunction standard because they wanted to win the abortion, their fight over the abortion. Their abortion, they weren't winning their case on the abortion statute. So now the entire injunction law in Utah is completely different, and cases are now going to be, handled differently because of this one case. It's just not the way you handle legislation. It's not the way you handle cases, and it's just not the way you write law. I don't agree on the way it was written. I don't agree on the way the case is being handled, and I don't agree with it at all.
Okay, we'll have to end it on that note. We have run out of time. Really appreciate the insight from both of you this morning. Thanks for being here with us.
You bet.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.